Hi, welcome to the Village of Buchanan January 2020 meeting. In case of emergency, please use your exit to your right, or there's a staircase behind the elevator. Please do not use the elevator in case of emergency. And if you could join me now in the Pledge of Allegiance, and we're going to take a minute after that, remain standing. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like us to remain standing for those men and women who are in harm's way today in respect of our way of life. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, approved minutes, November 5th, 2019 board minutes. Any corrections, questions, concerns?
Nothing from me.
Nothing for me.
On a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
November 19th, 2019 special meeting minutes. Any corrections, anything?
I have nothing.
Okay. On a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Abstention. One.
Oh, Rich wasn't, okay, Rich, yeah, you
Yeah.
weren't here. Okay, comments from the floor, agenda items only. Yes, sir.
Joe Murray, 205 Gallagher Street. I have a question on 4A. 4A accepting the resignation of a planning board member. I don't remember the last time that there has been a resolution to accept a resignation. The last resignation, there was no resolution for it. I was just wondering why this resignation is different than other resignations that have happened, and specifically the one that just happened last month also. So, can I get some clarity, please?
We do have a new administrator, and I will.
Sure, no problem. In my experience, when a board member resigns, nobody at the board would accept that resignation. Again, I'm just throwing it out there as a way to make public aware of what's going on in day-to-day operations of the village. And I'll put it on the agenda. If the village board wants to continue that process, it's up to them. If not, then that's fine. I just want to express what board members come and go. Since when we appoint them, it's publicly. When they resign, it should be done publicly as well.
The issue I have with that is occasionally people might put some inflammatory things in resignation letters that they might want only for the people that they're resigning to. So if this is going to be the new policy, I think people who are going to be resigning make it as powder puff as possible, because if it's going to be during a public hearing, their thoughts and feelings at the time might not have been originally intended for public view. And this is an employee matter, so I didn't know that employee matters customarily were not divulged in public. Hiring, firing was done, either in executive session or not in public. So that was the issue I have with that.
Okay.
Also,
Good point.
with 4G, I was wondering the resolution for this public hearing, is this for a new bond that's being passed, or is it information that's about the permissive referendum that was passed last month to borrow $1 million?
Yeah, this is, we've been discussing this for a little while, is most municipalities have a water fund, also have a sewer fund. The village, for some reason, have never created a sewer fund. Look, if you know Peekskill or other communities, like the towns, have sewer districts or sewer funds. We've never established one here. So the idea is to create a sewer fund to attribute all the expenses, like the sewer pump station we're doing. It's actually part of the general fund right now, to segregate into a separate fund. So the idea is to have a public hearing, to open public, have a discussion, to understand what the process would be. So as part of your water bill, you also have you'll have a sewer bill as well. I live in Peekskill, for example. So on your water bill, I also have a sewer bill. And that's all the expenses for the sewer fund being exposed separately for transparency's sake, and reallocating the expenses to what those expenses are.
So this proposed public hearing is to enact basically a new tax, because we don't have sewer meters. So it's going to be based on your gallonage. So you're creating a new tax to create a new district. It's not
a tax, it's a reallocation of expenses. You're here to pay through your taxes, you pay through your water bill. So it's a reallocation of the expenses.
It's not a new tax. We are not looking to have additional taxes on the residents.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, that's for
I just
sure.
wanted clarification, because when you see
Absolutely.
something with sewer, there was, well, we'll discuss it later.
Okay, all right. Okay, so I'm going to ask the board now, under 4A, would you like to rescind that, take a vote on that, and not do a vote on the,
Well, may I?
sure, absolutely.
Planning board and zoning board members are mayor's appointments. As a result, we don't vote on those. So I don't know that a resignation
Point
should,
of order. If you're gonna discuss an issue, there should be a second before you discuss the issue on the question. There should be a motion for the resolution, then a second, and then the topic
And then
should
on
be
a
debated.
question.
We're not on a question, we're on the beginning of the
well, the mayor's question was whether we should want, if we wanted to rescind the resolution as opposed to opening it. Yeah, these are set pretty high. Is there a,
Have to
is
set
there,
up.
is there a master control? I think they're set pretty high. That's good like that now? Right. I don't know. How's that? Is that good?
Much better.
Probably don't even need them, except, oh, we need them for the TV.
Yes,
So you should be the one telling us, is it good for you? For the, sound is okay for the recording? Thank you.
we're good.
All right, so how do we handle this now? Do we have to open this and then,
I
and
see
take
you,
it from there?
I see what you're saying, that it's really not,
It's not
Board
something
didn't
that
vote on the
technically does
thing.
not require a
Yeah,
resolution,
so-
is my
So do we
feeling.
have to vote to rescind these, okay. On a motion, I'm sorry, on a motion to remove this from the agenda and,
I make that motion.
second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And so, to clarify, in the future, we're not
Right, okay.
Okay.
So please, please be patient with our new administrator. He has come from a lot of experience in a lot of other municipalities, how things have been done. And, you know, he has a lot of good suggestions, and he's done a lot of good things for the village. And he's just trying to get us up to speed, because we're not on all subjects up to speed. So, thank you,
Yeah.
Marcus.
I mean, this is, it's something that, you know, in the past, members come and go, and the mayor or somebody else could refer to it in their report.
Right.
But it just doesn't require a resolution, basically.
Good enough.
Okay, so Dwayne, under new business number B, resolution appointing registrar and deputy registrar of vital statistics. Could you please read that?
Yes. Whereas it is necessary to appoint a registrar and deputy registrar of vital statistics for the village of Buchanan, and now be it therefore resolved that the mayor hereby appoints Marcus Sereno as registrar and Cindy Kempner as deputy registrar of vital statistics of the village of Buchanan for a period of 2 years, starting January 1st, 2020, and ending December 31st, 2021.
Okay, thank you. On a motion,
So moved.
second?
Second.
On a question
Yeah, I just, could we explain that a little further, what the
for the registrars?
the vital statistics, what's that about?
Death and birth certificates.
Oh, okay.
Anything like that.
Oh, okay, right.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Rich, could you please do C and D?
Yeah, sure. Whereas the next general village election shall be held on Wednesday, March 18th, 2020, and whereas according to New York State Election Law 15-104, subsection 3, the Board of Trustees of the village shall adopt a resolution which states the polling place in each election district and the hours during which the polls shall be open. Now be it therefore resolved that the polling places for the next general election for District 1 and 2 are located in the community room on the second floor of the municipal building, 236 Tate Avenue, Buchanan, New York, and be it further resolved that the hours which the polls shall be open will be between the hours of 6 a.m. and 9 p.m.
All right, thanks, Rich. On a motion, this is something we do every year, so, on a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The next one, Rich, you also,
Okay. The Village of Buchanan resolution scheduling a public hearing on a proposed local law overriding the New York State property tax cap. Whereas the state legislature and the governor enacted legislation that establishes a property tax cap on the amount that a local government's property tax levy can increase each year, and whereas this law is effective for local government's fiscal year beginning in 2020, and whereas under this law, the total amount to be raised through the property taxes charged on the municipality's taxable assessed value of property will be capped at 2% or the rate of inflation, whichever is less, with some exceptions, and whereas the state legislation provides for local governments to override the cap to protect the village from unforeseen financial circumstances, and whereas state legislation requires that in the event that an override is necessary, the law enabling it must already have been adopted by the Board of Trustees. And whereas local law introductory number 1 of 2020 has been drafted to override the property tax cap law enacted by the state legislature if necessary. Now therefore be it resolved that the village board will conduct a public hearing at the village municipal building on February 4th, 2020 at 7:30 p.m. for the purpose of taking public comment on and giving due consideration to the enactment of a local law overriding the 2% property tax cap law enacted by the state legislature. Be it further resolved that a copy of said local law is available at the village clerk's office for public inspection during regular business hours, and be it further resolved that the village clerk be and hereby is authorized and directed to publish notice of said public hearing in an official newspaper.
Oh, thanks, Rich. This is something we do every year also. You know, things are changing. We have to do this before, in case we have to override the cap. On a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
On a question?
Yeah, I have a question. Technically, is the public hearing required for this?
Yes,
It is.
yes.
Okay.
Local laws.
All right. And do we have, has the state given us the property tax cap figure for this year? I mean, it's called a 2% cap, but it can be anywhere from 1 and change. It's usually more like 1.5%.
I haven't received it yet.
They haven't received, it. Okay.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Nick, we'll have you do the next two, and then
Sure.
Cheech, if you could do the last one for us, please.
Okay. Village of Buchanan, resolution amending the capital fund budget. Whereas, on an annual basis, the Village of Buchanan is audited by outside auditors, and whereas, as part of the audit, the auditors review budgets in all funds, and whereas, in the review of the capital fund budgeted amounts, it was determined that the budget for certain projects were not modified to reflect the actions taken by the village, and whereas the required budget modification will not affect actual results of operations but would meet required accounting standards, create proper budgets, and reflect proper fund balances for capital funds, now therefore be it resolved that the budgets or authorized amounts to be amended to reflect prior transfers from the general fund for the 2019-20 fiscal year as follows. Should I read those amounts? It's a table, I'm just going to read the items. The items that are being transferred: paving, and authorized a 32,000, I'm not going to read all these figures. Do we need to read these figures? No.
No, these are like the
no,
budget transfers
no.
we.
Yeah, it's not going to make
for-
much sense in reading it anyway. We can discuss it after I read it, if anybody wants to. And be it further resolved that the fund balance of $3,899 of the sludge tank roof be transferred to general projects because this project was completed, and that the village treasurer is hereby authorized to make all budget amendments and transfer said funds in accordance with the amendments set forth herein. So, that's it.
you want me to explain a little
Yeah,
bit?
if you would like to.
For some reason, in the prior years, when they did capital projects, it wasn't allocated the proper way. We had met with the auditors, and Dwayne, we met with the auditors ourselves today, is that they were bulking it into one project on the auditing report, but yet our books had different numbers based on actual, these items. For example, give you a perfect example, we had a vehicle replacement of $15,000. In the audit, that was never reported to the auditors. So the auditors had that $15,000 bulked into paving. So we had to allocate the money out of the paving line into these projects that they belong. That's why you see a lot of increases, because we're actually taking the money out of the paving line and putting the allocation to proper lines. For the LED lighting, for example, that was bulked into the paving line and should have been an LED project. So if we didn't have the spreadsheet, you would think you would have all this paving money, which actually was really allocated to these projects. So I'm just balancing the books the way they should be.
Thank you.
And may I ask, are these different lines within the capital fund? Or they're
Correct.
different lines in other categories?
No, in the
They're
capital
all
fund.
separate
Yes.
lines within the
Yep.
capital fund?
And like I said, these are all allocated for, if the village, these are all transfers from the general fund into the capital fund. None of this money is debt service, which is good, which means is that if the village board ever wants to reallocate these money to other projects or move money around, you have the ability to do that. I want to make sure that's clear, too.
So, just pretty much a case of better bookkeeping.
That's correct.
Nothing wrong with that. On a motion?
So
So-
moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Village of Buchanan resolution, retaining the services of the law office of Jeffrey E. Storch as bond counsel. Whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Buchanan has determined it is in the public interest to retain the services of bond counsel, and whereas the village will be issuing debt to recoup the cost for certain projects, and whereas the law office of Jeffrey E. Storch has submitted an engagement letter dated December 17, 2019, to serve as bond counsel, and that the engagement letter has been reviewed by the village attorney and the interim village administrator and found to be suitable, and now therefore be it resolved that by the Board of Trustees of the Village of Buchanan as follows. 1, the law office of Jeffrey E. Storch is authorized to serve as bond counsel for the Village of Buchanan. 2, this resolution shall become effective immediately upon its adoption by a majority of the members of the village board.
All right. On a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
On a question?
I thought that the attorney's name was Bond.
That was a special counsel that actually helped us through the process to get the resolution done for the actual, the secret process. We also had to do the notice of intent to recoup the money from the prior projects that we had to do. Now, you need bond counsel to actually do an official legal opinion at the end when we actually go to bond. So this will clarify finishing the process.
Are they from the same firm?
Different firms.
Different
Yeah, they
firms.
work together. They work
work
together,
yeah.
yes.
All right, thanks.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Cheech, you're next.
Yes, ma'am. Village of Buchanan resolution scheduling a public hearing on a proposed local law amending Chapter 155, adding Article 155-38 of the Code of the Village of Buchanan. Whereas a local law has been drafted and introduced which would adopt a local law amending Chapter 155, adding Article 155-38 of the Code of the Village of Buchanan. And whereas the local law has been received and reviewed by the Board of Trustees, which has recommended the adoption of same, and whereas it is the desire of the board to conduct a public hearing on the enactment of the proposed local law. Now, be it therefore resolved that the village board will conduct a public hearing at the Village Municipal Building on February 4th, 2020, at 7:30 p.m. for the purpose of taking public comment on and giving due consideration to the enactment of the local law amending Chapter 155, adding Article 155-38 entitled Sewer Rents of the Code of the Village of Buchanan. And be it further resolved that a copy of said local law is available at the village clerk's office for public inspection during regular business hours. And be it further resolved that the village attorney be and hereby is authorized and directed to publish notice of said public hearing in the official newspaper.
Thank you. All right, this was something that was recommended that we do for accounting purposes, as the administrator had said. This is not an additional tax. Other municipalities do it. I own property in Peekskill. That's what they do. It's on the water bill. It also shows the sewer amount that you pay. And one of the reasons I think that this is a good thing, because we might eventually, well, sooner rather than later, be taking in other municipalities, and then we have a sewer district that we're setting up with that. So I think this would be good. But then again, we're having a public hearing on February 4th if people are against it. So since we're having a public hearing, I would recommend everyone come out and voice their opinion, so the board can make a decision.
Well, when we say everyone, we don't mean all 2,300 of you.
Well, they could come one by one, sure. Yeah, no, that's fine. I want everyone to speak. Okay?
Do you want to make,
motion?
Make the motion?
Set
I
the
make the
public
motion?
hearing? Yes, please. Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Well, before we vote, can I just clarify something?
Well,
So,
we did,
so
but
I
go
get,
ahead.
I get the gist of this, and I just want to be clear, and I'm sure this will come out in the public hearing, but I mean, right now, the cost of operating the sewers is coming out of general taxation.
That's correct.
So will our tax bills then be itemized for all of these items? Because I think basically should not change what people are paying in taxes, it's just change the accounting into a separate sewer fund. So, the water fund is billed separately, this will be billed separately. In theory, then, whatever people are paying in this sewer fund, rent or tax would be the amount that the general tax levy would be reduced.
Yeah, what will happen is a reallocation of the expenses or revenue, that'll be all balanced out. If this gets approved, then it's part of the overall budget for the next year. So what will happen is then we look at total revenue expenses for the sewer fund, the water fund, and the general fund.
Right.
And then what will happen is they'll have a public hearing on that as well and discuss what the impacts would be. So the public hearing will discuss it as well. But the way I look at it, the sewer fund is about $1 million. So the sewer fund was itemized separately. The sewer bill will be about a quarter of what you pay on your water bill. So whatever you pay on your water bill, that quarter will be as part of your water bill. But at the same time, that'll be removed from the tax rate, per se.
Because-
And then we got to see what the taxes are going to be impacted for the future expenses
Right.
in the
Right.
general fund.
I trust that there'll be a good bit of confusion, and that's why I'm raising the question.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of people some people will, might have a bit of an accounting head and will understand that that's coming out of the general tax levy that
Correct.
they're paying when they pay their taxes, whether through their mortgage or
That's
directly,
correct.
and going into a separate fund. Now, but then, in theory, then you'd think, okay, then I should see my tax bill go down, but that might be in a year where taxes are going up.
Correct.
So there's going to be except for people that are really good in math and have the head and the stomach for that accounting, I think it's going to lead to a good bit of confusion. That's why I wanted to raise this question.
Absolutely.
But what we will be doing, we'll be taking it out of the general taxation and making it into a separate fund,
Correct.
which will enable us going forward to work with our sewer district in a more efficient way.
Exactly.
And I like the idea. I think people get, if you itemize a tax bill, like we've talked about some other municipalities do, that
You see where your money's
people
going
can
to.
say, okay, well, so that's why I'm paying that, whatever, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 a year.
Correct.
Or $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 to the village, whatever it is. I know there are people paying more.
Yeah, right.
But the itemization,
Correct.
I like the idea of it, but I just,
Yeah.
want to flag that there will be confusion.
Yep, and then part of the budget process, I'm hopefully presenting for my budget, when I do the budget, is I'm going to have more detailed presentation when we do the budget process.
Yeah.
More detail in regards to where
Yeah.
every one of your dollars goes, to what expense, so everybody knows where the money's going to.
And I also, I guess this will get discussed at the public hearing, but basing it on your water usage is interesting. I think it's probably not a perfect correlation, but about the only correlation we can come up with.
Correct.
For a one-person household who's somebody who does a lot of gardening or pool filling, that it may not reflect what they're putting back into the sewer system. You know, we're not measuring the water coming out of your house the same way we are measuring the water going into your house. So overall, it should be, you know, it could be a little of, for some people, it could be a disparity.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
But that's another
That's
interesting
good discussion. Yep.
aspect of this.
Absolutely.
Madam Mayor, is there a chance we can post this on the website or something that residents can have a chance to take a look at the Chapter 155?
Yeah, absolutely. It's on the website now.
Is it?
Yep, as part of the agenda, yes.
Oh, okay. Great, thank you.
All right. We did vote. Yes, we did, and then you had something to say. You confuse me all the time.
No, I said before we vote, could I ask a couple questions? So we did
didn't
not vote.
Okay, thank
I
you.
interrupted the vote.
All right.
Sorry.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All righty. So, information from officers and departments, Justice Court reports, November 2019, one was $1,310, the other was $761, received and filed. Police report, November 2019, received and filed. I'm just looking here, total calls, 142. Planning Board minutes, October 24th, 2019, received and filed, and Zoning Board minutes, October 9th, 2019, and also November 13th, 2019, received and filed. Okay, attorney's report, Stephanie.
I just have one brief update. Westchester Industrial, WIC. I know that they've been in court for quite a while. Spoke to council today, and apparently they're back in on the 21st.
Of January, 21st,
January.
okay.
You know, I don't know how much more I can say, but, so the defendant hired new counsel. That new counsel came in a couple months ago, asked for time for motions. No motions were filed. So the prosecutor believes that that was the deadline, and on the 21st hopes to get final dates. That's all I can tell you.
It's
I
an
speak to a monthly, it's an ongoing,
saga, yes.
I can tell you the owner of WIC has dug his heels in, he's just not willing, he wants to take this to a trial, and if the trial is unsuccessful in his corner, then he wants to go to the appellate division. So it's gonna be a long battle.
Okay.
And there's your update, you know, I don't know what else to tell you. Sorry.
It's in the court's hands, and, you know,
And Joe Ruyak, I mean, he does push it, he keeps me updated all the time. He
Okay.
has prepped the engineer, he's prepped the building inspector, he's ready to go, he's asked for a trial. He's got a couple of trial dates and they have been pushed out. So,
all right, thanks,
that's all I
Stephanie.
have.
Thank you. Marcus, what do you have for us tonight?
Just a couple of things I've been working on,
Okay.
give you guys forward and the public an update. With the Citizen Advisory Committee you have, we're actually going to create a website for people can actually access all the data, all the documents. So we're working on that. So there's a meeting on the 15th.
Yes.
So that'll be videotaped as well. As soon as the website is up, we'll start posting all the information on that website, so everybody has access to that. I'm working on Village's IT security. I don't want to get into more details what's going on with that, but if there's an executive session, I can fill you in on that. There's a lot of items I'm working on that as well. Working, as everybody knows, we have a DEC consent order regarding the sewer treatment plant. That's expanded over also to all the sewer lines as well. That's part of this whole sewer discussion we have. George did a great report. I think the DEC's overreaching for what they are, but we are required to reply to the consent order. And the consent order actually talks about all the sewer lines within the village that they wanted to be investigated and scoped, smoke
Well,
tests and everything else.
understanding from other people in the county, they're doing that throughout
Yeah.
the county.
I had the same issue in Rye, but the difference was when I was in Rye, in that section of the county, Mamaroneck, New Rochelle, Mount Vernon, we had issue with overflows. So what would happen was, when we had a lot of water in the system will overflow, manholes will pop, and then we have raw sewage coming out. Thank God that doesn't happen here.
No.
So we've never had an overflow issue. So I think the DEC has a little bit overreached because they're doing that other section of the county. So George has provided a report back to the DEC. We requested a meeting, a face-to-face meeting with the DEC to determine exactly what they're looking for and to understand the differences between us and other people they've had consent orders with. So hopefully we'll have that meeting set up and have a discussion, see what they're looking for. I mean, if they're looking for what we had to do in Mamaroneck and Rye, we're talking about, it could be millions of dollars, tens of millions. So we got to see what that's going to go. During my tenure here, working with Cindy, I tell you, I don't do this by myself. Cindy's been fantastic, and we work as a team on everything. We've had a lot of lack of training in staff, OSHA requirements, PESH requirements. We've actually received a couple of PESH violations, not major issues, but there are violations, and we've been addressing them as well. We have to be abated by the end of March. So I've been working with the police department, DPW. I think we'll have everything abated. But I think the problem was there was a lot of things lacking, especially required training that had to be taking place. So I'm meeting with our broker and our workers' comp carrier to get all the training done that's required to get done, not only to abate the PESH violations, but actually be more proactive and get more training done the way it's supposed to be done. So working on that as well. We've been working with the fire department and the village attorney regarding the LoSAP program for the fire department. I think we got that clarified. I want to thank I met with the trustees of the fire department. They've been very cooperative. I think we're working very good together. I had a discussion with them today. We're heading in the right direction. I think you're going to be getting at the next meeting change the policy as well. The village will be receiving the list of qualified people that meet the point structure. I know you haven't received it in the past.
No, we have not, yes.
So
And
you'll be
we're
receiving-
finding out that's something we were supposed to be
Correct.
receiving every year.
Yeah,
so,
you've been receiving it from the
yes.
beginning. Since
No, that's good.
1991, you should have been receiving it.
That's why I'm glad we can get this straightened out.
So,
That's-
and the fire department is very cooperative. They want to make sure we do everything correctly. So you're going to get that list. And also, they're going to be asking for a change in the point structure to try to clarify a little bit. They're actually trying to be more proactive as well. So for the next
Do we
meeting.
want to have like a separate meeting with the board or just to have them come in and talk about that, you know? 'Cause I would, or if you want to do it, I'd like to get this resolved,
Okay, all
you
right.
know?
And I need to,
Okay.
and I'll write you guys a memo on the point system. I need to see what they're doing, if you're gonna, you know, the original adopted policy came from you guys in
Yes.
1990, whatever, to
91.
change it, 91.
Yep.
I wasn't here
To
till
change
94,
that, I
so,
mean,
yeah.
you know, in my opinion, I haven't seen it and I haven't spoken to anybody. I've only talked to Marcus tonight. I need to look at it and then get back to you.
Okay,
On
all
how
right.
that would come about.
Okay, so I just want to say it's been very cooperative. There was a lot of miscommunication in the past, a little bit of hard feelings. I'm trying to get those, it was nobody's fault. There was some miscommunications. I want to get that miscommunication over with. The volunteer force is fantastic. You know, they go out there 24/7 whenever it's necessary. They not get paid for anything. There should be no
They're
hard
all
feelings.
volunteers,
Everybody
yeah.
should be working
No, I
together.
know.
So
We're
I think
one
we're heading in the
community.
right direction there, so I
Okay,
wanted you to
good.
know about that as well.
Good.
As discussed, I'm trying to, for the next budget, I'm trying to revise the budget a little bit more, make it a little more user-friendly. I'm also going to do a more detailed presentation with a lot more, numbers is one thing, but graphs are better, so I'm going to be focused on graphs presentation. Hopefully by then, we'll do either a TV screen or a screen that I can do a little presentation for the board and to the public to talk about how the money is expended on everything. I'm working on that as well. Meeting with the DOT on the 13th to
Right.
talk about Route 9A.
And we kind of.
We talked
went
about
over
it.
that, okay.
Yeah, thank you for stopping
I
by.
can't make that.
Yeah, and so we're gonna be, hopefully, we're gonna be talking about what the actual plan is gonna be done, the timeline is actually gonna be the work. I wanna talk about sidewalks, I wanna talk about the transition between all the blocks and Route 9A, so we're gonna be talking about that on the 13th. I'll be able to update the village board after that's done. I'm also gonna be meeting with Siemens on the 13th to talk about the scope of work for that as well. I want to get a more itemized list of what they were talking about doing, how they got to the bottom number. So we'll be meeting on the 13th regarding that. On the pavilion, we're still waiting, I don't know where that came from. We're still waiting on the grant awards for the pavilion. So the contractor has been very cooperative.
Good.
He said he's hold the price. As soon as we know, we can start to work on the pavilion. And then on the last thing, we're also still meeting with the police department. regarding negotiations. We're not trying to get into we're trying to avoid arbitration as much as possible. So we're going to have at least 1 or 2 more meetings with the mediator to see if we can reach a settlement and avoid arbitration. So those are a couple of things I've been working
And
on.
you're also meeting on the 14th with the planner?
I mean, on the 14th on the planner, correct, yes.
That one I'll be there.
Yep.
Do we have a time for that?
I got to email him back in. I know
I
we
have to
picked
go
the
back.
date. Yep,
I think I forget, 1 or 2.
I'll double check with him on that one, too.
So thank you, Marcus, you've been
Just
busy.
one question, Marcus, on that sexual harassment training.
Yes.
How, is that complete? Did
Most of the
everybody
people,
done?
I think most of the people, it's great, most of the people have completed it. Again, Cindy's been fantastic, and Sharon, Cindy's been following up with people. There's only a handful of people who haven't finished it yet, but it's so easy.
Okay.
Go online and get it done. Majority of people did it. The cops did it online. We actually did it in-house with the DPW crew. So most of, all employees have been trained. Just a couple of board members haven't finished it up yet.
What is the requirement for the highway workers as far as the OSHA class? Do they have to do a 10 or a 30-hour OSHA class?
Yes, and there's.
10 or 30?
I think it's 15, it's around 15 hours, and there's also other additional changes, confined space training, noise, eye protection. So what's good about PERMA, again, we haven't used the assets we could have used. We use PERMA for workers' comp. They'll do all the training for free. The problem is they have to be called to do the training, and what training you would like to get done. That hasn't happened. So, but that's what we're also meeting with PERMA to go over all the requirements, so that way we can schedule it, we meet with Bob and the police department, so that way we get all the training done for both police and DPW. So we're moving forward with that too. Okay,
And
thank
going
you.
back to 9A, you had put in a grant for sidewalks.
Correct.
So we're hoping to hear that we do get some grant money to do some sidewalks before they do the repaving. So,
Yes.
thank you, Marcus. I
Okay.
mean, you're
Don't
doing a
do
good
good
job
work.
for us. You've got a lot of things going, and you're getting things done, so we
Appreciate it.
appreciate
Thanks.
it,
Thank you.
definitely. Chief? You'd like to say a few words?
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to bring to your attention and to the village residents' attention an incident that happened early Christmas morning. Unfortunately, it was early Christmas morning. Thankfully, a resident was alerted to people that were in their vehicle that was parked in their driveway, notified the police. Officer Reg, who was working that night, it was after midnight, responded immediately, and within probably 30 minutes or so, well, actually, upon the initial response, learned that there were 2 people seen in this resident's vehicle. They were rummaging through the vehicle looking for property to steal. They were chased away prior to being able to successfully steal anything. Officer Reg, I'd like to commend him for his police work and his awareness and his initiative. He surveilled the village with his police vehicle. He turned the lights off, did some, I'm not going to get into how he did it, but knew that the 2 people would be coming out at some point. He did find those 2 people, stopped them. One fled on foot. The other he was able to detain. He contacted the Peekskill police, who responded to assist, and I'd like to thank them for their assistance as well. Working together as a team, Officer Reg and the Peekskill officer, who happened to be Officer Nolte, found a taxi cab in the village, stopped that taxi cab and find out what he was doing there so early in the morning. He said, I'm here to pick somebody up. So they watched the taxi cab, and then the second guy came out. So that they got both guys. Only one was arrested. Unfortunately, he was a 13-year-old, not from this area. He's from a neighboring town, and he was found in possession of quite a bit of stolen property that was from other vehicles. So it wasn't the original caller who had property stolen, but because that person was alerted and did the right thing and called the police, we were able to recover a significant amount of stolen property from other vehicles in the area. And it's believed that these 2 are responsible for several other incidents around the Tri-Village areas. It's not necessarily just Buchanan, it was Verplank and Montrose, and we're working with the troopers on that. So again, it's something that I think the village residents should know about, and what their police officers are doing, especially at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. They're out actively patrolling the village and doing a good job, I believe, really putting their all into it. They work alone, which is sometimes a struggle, but thank you to our neighboring jurisdictions who are always there to help us, as we are them. We were able to successfully take care of this particular issue, and I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention, and also remind residents to lock their doors of their vehicles in my experience, most vehicle break-ins are not in fact break-ins. They're people who are finding vehicles with unlocked cars, and you'd be surprised what people leave in their unlocked cars for people to see. I've seen extremely valuable merchandise, materials, computers, things like that are left unsecured. So really a reminder to everyone to lock their vehicles and put some motion detectors in and be alert when you hear something at night. And you always want to turn over and not look out the window. Thankfully, this resident didn't turn over and did look out the window, and would have ruined a lot of Christmas mornings that day. So just thank her for that. Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
And thank you to Officer Reg and the Peekskill Police Department, and good job, really good job. And that just goes back to, you know, things are changing, the world is changing. I remember back in the day, I don't think too many years ago, I don't like to think too many years ago, but we left our doors open and never would think of locking a car door, but we're hearing more and more, especially in Verplank. I know a lot of people were complaining that their cars were getting broken into Montrose, and also packages in the Verplank Montrose area being taken off of people's porches. So, you know, the world is changing, so we have to make sure we have everything secure before we go to bed at night. My turn. So, on February 4th, the next meeting, we have Norma Drummond coming, and she's going to be speaking about the census and how important that is, and getting people on board to also be census takers. So that should be kind of interesting. I want to mention that last month, myself, our attorney Stephanie Porteous, and Marcus, our administrator, took a ride up to Vermont. And we went to the power plant that is closed and currently being decommissioned by North Star. And it was quite an educational trip. It was well worth the 3 hours. And yes, I know it's not the same type of a plant. It's a very smaller plant, and it's done differently than our plant. But what was interesting, speaking to some of the residents there, some of the things that happened, and one of the things that just made me feel good, because I've been stressing since the announcement, she turned to me and she said, "You are going to get through this. Your community is going to get through this, and you're going to be okay." So I'm like, okay. And it was just, they saw the same things that we're seeing, like we're going through now. So I have asked them if they would please come, probably next month, and we'll talk about what they saw and things they experienced. So at least we understand what's coming for us. But one of the things I thought very interesting, their state was very good. They were an intervener when this process went on. Our state was not. So one of the things that they're fortunate is, once the decommissioning is done up there, that land is going to be given back to the community. But that was an arrangement that was already, handled. They also, their planner to redevelop the property is being paid by the decommissioning company. What a concept. And they're very much, North Star is very, very much working with the community through this whole decommissioning process. One of the things I thought was fascinating was the way they were, they're moving along pretty well up there. But what they did is, how they're taking the parts and they're putting them into these, I don't know how else, these metal containers. Those metal
Pretty big
containers,
ones.
yeah, they're big containers, and those containers are going to be shipped to Texas, and they're going to be burying those containers. So they have some radioactivity on it. So I just
By train?
Yeah, by train. It's like in a metal box type thing, and that's what they're doing. That's how they're getting rid of all that stuff. And it was pretty interesting. And I just thought, it was a 3-hour trip. It was a long day. We also went that evening to one of their citizens advisory panels. So I just thought it was a worthwhile trip, and it was very interesting. We learned a few things from that. On January 15th, I would really ask the community to come out. We have our first Citizens Advisory Panel of the year. It's going to be 6 o'clock. It's going to be on the second floor. We have Holtec, the company that's going to or interested in purchasing the Entergy property to do the decommissioning. They will be going over the post-shutdown report, the PSDAR, the report. That's going to start at 6 o'clock, and I would really like to see a lot of the residents come out. This is your community, this is your village. You really need to understand what's going on here. Of course, you're going to have a lot of other people, anti-people, I'm sure, coming, but just remember this is your community, and you should have a voice in what's going on.
Will
and
this
what
be
it should
televised?
And it will be televised,
Right.
yes, we will be
For
televising.
people who can't come out,
Yes,
yeah.
we will be taping it for sure. Every meeting, every Citizens Advisory Panel meeting will be taping, so, yeah. And that's all I have for tonight, so please come out next week. And Dwayne, we'll start with you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. You know, I've been going around the village, and I think there's been also an uptake on trash being thrown out of cars and places, you know, and not only in Buchanan, but I see a little bit of it on Old Albany Post Road, and you're like, really? You know, I mean, and I don't know, Chief, if residents see somebody throwing something out of a car and take the plate down, if that would be any interest to you.
In a situation like that, we could certainly go and speak to an individual and investigate it. We couldn't issue a ticket unless we
Right.
physically
Yeah.
saw it,
Right.
but that would be something we'd definitely be interested in addressing.
Okay,
Yeah.
because, I mean, you know, the residents, if you see something like that, you know, it's kind of like see something, say something, but, you know, it's disheartening, you know, and so blatant that, you know, cartons of milk, things.
Wow, you're nice. When I see that, I think much worse stuff than what you're saying.
You know, and it's just like, what are they thinking? You know, I mean, is it,
They're not.
you know? So, anyway, for the residents to kind of just be aware of that, and certainly as the chief spoke about the, you know, locking your car, and as I always talk about, that our catch basins go down to the lake,
Yeah.
and, you know, so be aware of that aspect of it. And certainly, even though it's cold out, curb your dogs, although this is one of the warmest seasons that we've had. Also, you know, as our involvement with the Buchanan Historical Society, you know, we try and do reenactments and invite the kids over. Well, on January 18th, there's going to be a reenactment storyline that I will be participating in at the Van Cortlandt Historical Society, January 18th at 2 p.m. So it'd be great to bring the kids out and see a bit of history. It's on the 1st Rhode Island Regiment, which was made up of 139 free black men that fought the Battle of Pine Bridge in 1781. So it's kind of interesting, and we'll be in uniform of the day. So, you know, that's January 18th at 2 p.m. And other than that, that's it for me.
All right, thank you. Deputy Mayor Funchin?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have too much. I hope everybody had a great Christmas and New Year's. I agree, Dwayne, about the garbage, especially on my corner in Kings Ferry and Tate. I mean, it's anytime I go out to do anything, I'm picking up garbage. But I guess there's not really too much because that's going down for Plank. I attended the tree lighting in the beginning of December. It was very, very nice. I do have a suggestion. I think myself and Cheech were there added, and I think it would be better on a Saturday than a Sunday because the amount of people that came out was not. We were expecting a lot more, I think, and I don't know whether it's because it's Sunday and there's football games on that people don't come out. But it was still a nice tree lighting, and we all had a nice time. I also attended the village workers' party here in the building here itself. It was great to have a time with the workers who do so much for our village, and to thank them for their services throughout the year. And then finally, I attended the seniors' party, which was, again, another nice affair. And of course, I'd done the training that we talked about, the safety and the sexual harassment training, which is, I think I've been through. It might have been the 20th time I've been through it. So it's a little shorter here than I had when I was with the federal government. But everybody enjoy the weekend of Martin Luther King, whether they be going away. Try to remember the great strides that man made for our country, and we will always live long in our history. And that's it. Thank you.
All right, and I'd just like to thank Mark as the employee party.
Yes, yes, I'm sorry,
So thank
Mark,
you, that was
yes.
very nice of you. Okay. Mr. Zachary, trustee Zachary.
Thanks. So I had thought something about the Christmas tree lighting, just as long as you mention it. You know, maybe while we're waiting for that little shrub over there while we're waiting for that little shrub to grow in, maybe we could have some kind of thing where if people have a mature evergreen on, you know, like in 2000, the Rockefeller Center tree was taken from up on Buchanan Avenue. You know, maybe have like honorary Christmas trees, and let a resident, if a resident wanted to, they could ask, you know, with a mature tree, and we could have it at particular, you know, different places for a few years. If, I don't know.
Did you say you're waiting for that tree to grow in?
I think I called it.
Shrub. Well,
I think it sounds way out.
Unfortunately, the tree is dying. So we
Okay, so
have
then
to
let's,
replace it.
when we get a new tree, let's give it a few years to grow, and meanwhile, rotate around to different, let people volunteer to be the honorary Buchanan Christmas tree of the year. You know, we could do that while the other tree is growing in. My other thought was, if the cold weather keeps people away, maybe we could have the Christmas tree lighting in August, you know.
That's a thought.
Anyway, just a couple of things. One is, a couple of meetings back, I had mentioned the plastic bag ban, and as part of a similar talk, you know, like Dwayne will sometimes give about littering and plastic, and I often talk about plastic use. We are burying ourselves in plastic. So it's actually March 1st that New York State will have a ban on plastic bags. When you go to the supermarket, you bring a reusable bag, or you'll have to be charged a nominal amount for a paper bag.
Nick, just on that, it's already in effect in Dutchess.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that. Was that, I guess that was a Dutchess decision?
Dutchess County,
yeah.
Each county.
Okay, so statewide, it's March 1st. Something else I just wanted to mention to people, people that, you know, the days are short, and people are walking on the streets in the dark. And I'm just amazed how brave people are, that they're willing to walk on the side of the road in all dark clothes. And even the good drivers sometimes can't see that well if there's the glare of an oncoming car. And maybe it's people that don't drive that don't realize this, but if you're a driver, you realize sometimes you have glare from an oncoming car, sometimes there's a rain and the windshield is a little smudged. Whatever it is, if you're wearing all dark clothes on the road at night, I don't know, bravery or stupidity, I'm not sure, but try to wear some visible clothes, walk facing traffic, don't walk with your back to traffic. I can't tell you how many times I've been driving along and all of a sudden somebody was right there and you can't see them till the last minute. So please be careful if you're walking on the roads at night. Try to wear something visible and watch what you're doing. I wanted to mention that the January 28th workshop, we'll be discussing some proposed zoning changes. We'll be meeting with the planner on the 14th beforehand. The planner will be here on the 28th, correct?
Yep.
So this involves the main changes that are being proposed, that I've proposed actually, are for an overlay district on Route 9A, including parts of Tate and White Street, something to to try to encourage some development, try to encourage, facilitate positive development, increase pedestrian access, just trying to initiate some zoning changes that will make it more, remove obstacles for developers. And, so anybody interested in this, and I know there are some people out there interested in this, it's come up many times over the years, trying to promote development. So I encourage people, not all 2,300 of you, but I encourage people that are interested to come out on the 28th for our workshop, 7:30 p.m. And there's also the local waterfront revitalization group will finally be having its kickoff meeting
I saw the email.
on the 29th, which is the town and the village together. There was grant money that we got to explore a revitalization plan for the riverfront, which is not just the riverfront, but the portions, the town. It's basically everything from Route 9A to the river. We've hired a consultant, and that's going to be starting up on the 29th. And that's all. Thank you.
Excellent.
Trustee Pasquale, what do you have?
Yes, ma'am.
please?
First of all, I wish everybody have a happy New Year, happy and healthy New Year. And also on what Dwayne was saying, I just like to thank the joggers and the walkers on Tate Avenue that when they see these empty containers, or they actually pick them up and carry them along. They shouldn't have to be doing that, but thank you for those of you that do it. Because I have noticed as well a little more debris on Tate Avenue. And I can't speak for the rest of the village because I live on Tate and I do see it. Also, Chief, thank you for that report that you gave. That was excellent work on Officer Regg's part. I have the opportunity to speak with Sergeant Farrell a couple of times every month, and usually when I see these 142 total calls for police service, he usually gives me a little bit of an update on some of the things, and I like to share them with all you guys. And this month, it seems like there were quite a bit that were good community policing stories here. And also, what I think is important, that we have a police department that's able to help the Hen Hut School District. I mean, I have an instance here where Detective Lotion participated on December 12th for a lockdown drill at the Hen Hut High School. Also have another incident here in November where Officer Regg and Detective Lochner were conducting daily walk through the Buchanan Verplank Elementary School, where they were approached by school staff advising that there was a person at the playground that did not recognize. Officer Regg and Detective Lochner able to locate the subject, determined that he was there for a student, and listed as a guardian for a child that attends the school and did not properly check in the front office. Subject was instructed on the proper school procedures for visitors. Also, Palmetto had a meeting with the Boy Scouts, and just me on a personal note, I was telling the chief this before we got here. First time, I was a Boy Scout, believe it or not. But anyway, I remember when the police came to our school and we were all listening, and I was just like, phew, and that made me become a police officer after seeing that. And thank God I was able to live my dream with that. And that's about all I have.
Okay. No, that's
Thank
good.
you.
That's good. All right.
Oh,
so-
one more thing.
Oh, sure, sorry.
Tomorrow, just on a personal note, I'd like to wish Elvis Presley a happy birthday. He's been 85. He's watching on us from Graceland in the sky. Okay? So everybody put on an Elvis song tomorrow, or whatever you have, eat a banana and peanut butter sandwich, whatever you have to do, but watch a movie, but happy birthday to the king.
All right, good to know, thanks. Okay, so we are at comments from the floor.
In your comments, Trustee Zaki, you mentioned zoning changes. You've mentioned one. What are the other zoning changes that you propose for the rest of the village?
One of them has to do with considering zoning changes for the wooded portion, undeveloped portion of the Indian Point property, which is currently zoned only for, as you know, just for peaceful use of atomic energy. we, it's not exactly clear where we would go with that, but we want to sort of go on the idea that we should sort of, even though it may not be binding to anybody, we should try to give some sense of what the village would like to see going forward in that property. Could be could be a lot of years, but, so one is a proposed zoning change for that from the current M1 zone, and the other is this overlay zone on 9A, both of which, I can give you, I did some rough drafts to open the discussion. If you'd like, I'll forward them to you.
So your proposed zoning changes are for the C1, C2, and M1 district?
Yes, it's a combination of
Not R10 or R7.5?
No, it's a combination of C1 and C2. It's basically 9A from the southern village border to Tate Avenue, and just from the circle out on Tate and White. Would you like me to email you?
No, it's okay, that's fine. There was rumors going around that there was gonna be zoning changes for residential parcels concerning parking on the grass and stuff like that. So I just wanted to clarify that.
No.
You said there was gonna be
Well, there
zoning
was,
changes.
that's, we did a couple of years ago, we did some parking regulation stuff, and well, it's already, I think it was already in the village code that you're not supposed to park on village lawns.
I
But
don't
that's
think
nothing to
that's
do
part
with
of
this.
But either way, I appreciate that.
Yep.
Sean,
Yes, sir.
let me mention one thing. There was some discussion, Nick, on the idea of looking at the height of buildings, or possible new buildings in the commercial area.
Yeah, that's the overlay zone.
Yeah, that's, right now, I believe it's 35 feet or something.
Right.
So there was some discussion about that, and we'll look at it going forward.
Yeah, some, setback stuff, height stuff.
Sure,
Stuff
absolutely.
and stuff.
A couple other things. The other day when I came into the village office, I saw that there was a notice of a permissive referendum hanging. Then I saw on the 17th that there was a resolution passed for a permissive referendum for the $1 million for the 4th Street pump station. Am I interpreting that correct or not?
Yeah, any bond resolution is permissive referendum.
No, that's a decision by the board to be a permissive referendum, or it could be a ballot measure.
No, under state law, whenever you do a bond resolution, it's a permissive referendum automatically on the state law.
You can do a permissive, we've done this before. I had actually proposed a permissive referendum in 2008 for the sewer plant and the roads, and that permissive referendum was voted down and became a ballot measure. Okay, when we proposed the permissive referendum, we had a public hearing. Now, I would like to ask the elected officials why there wasn't a public hearing, unless I missed it. I went back through all of the meeting agendas. I did not see a public hearing for a permissive referendum.
The problem is with the sewer station, and hasn't been upgraded since it was put in probably the 60s sometime. It's in desperate, we're in trouble.
I have no doubt that the money needs to be spent. The question I had is why there was no public hearing.
We did, we
What month did
discussed
you have a
it.
public hearing?
We discussed it.
Because I have all of the
Yeah, I don't remember.
agendas
Yeah.
Okay, let us
from
know.
today till January 8th. There's nothing on there about a public hearing for a permissive referendum. I went back to June of 2018. I did not see an agenda item for a permissive referendum. Maybe I missed it, but I watched all of the shows on the cable show. I did not see a public hearing.
That was when they do that was the permissive referendum for the bond issue.
When was that?
That was
A
December.
couple months ago, yeah.
December, a couple months
Couple
ago.
months now.
Yeah.
December 17th at the special meeting is when the resolution was passed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I thought there would have to be a comment period, because some of the questions I would ask is, what's the village's undesignated fund balance for fiscal year 18? And what's the projected fund balance for 19? Can the elected officials tell me what that is, please? Because you guys voted on the resolution for the bond.
We voted on the resolution for the bond because we desperately need to do it. It's ready to fail,
listen,
Sean.
I
I
understand
don't know
that.
what
Listen.
else to do. I mean,
Well,
write a
and-
check and have myself do it, I don't know.
That is why.
But I
just
do
asked the
understand what
question.
you're saying, but we're getting into an emergency situation.
And
We
that's
need
fine.
it.
Listen,
You
I
know,
understand that.
we desperately need to do this.
My other question,
'Cause if that
follow-up
fails, we
question to
got
that,
trouble.
is what's your undesignated fund balance at this time? How much money do you have in the bank?
It's not that much.
How much? What I left in 2010 was $1.8 million. That was on a $1.9 million
Okay, I'm
that we
gonna
were
do it. I'm
getting
gonna jump
from.
in. You know what? This is what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna go back to the time There were two bonds we did. One was for Blakely Avenue, and we did do that road paving. We never used the $1 million bond for the sewer treatment plant. So what happened, instead of using that bond and upgrading that sewer treatment plant to the new technology, the over $900,000 came out of our fund balance to upgrade that plant. That hurt the village tremendously.
That $900,000 did not come out of that, because a portion of it was paid on the O&M budget from Entergy.
I
Okay, and we
will
borrowed
tell you what we
$600,000
ended
from that
up,
fund.
I will tell you what we
It was supposed to be repaid
paid.
back to the general fund in
Well,
2014. Did that occur?
no, it didn't. That money was used.
2014.
That money was used.
So, there again, what is the undesignated fund balance? Well, the elected officials are the ones that voted on that resolution.
Absolutely.
Let me just answer the question. If you want the legal reason why, how the progressive referendum,
I
I can get.
understand the process.
Okay, there's no public hearing necessary for a bond resolution.
That's fine.
Okay.
What I'm saying,
I'm
we've
gonna find
had
out what that
3
was.
requests for a public referendum. 2 were for the bond issues, and 1 was for the dissolution of the court system. We had public hearings on all of them.
Yep.
We've had very few public hearings in this village this past year and last year. And I'm just wondering if the village residents know that there is a permissive referendum out there to borrow $1 million that was passed at a special meeting, non-televised, okay, without a public hearing. I wonder if the residents know that borrowing $1 million is 15% of your operating budget, approximately, and it's approximately 50% of your real property tax revenue. I didn't know if the residents know that. I don't know if the residents know what the process of a permissive referendum is, because we didn't have a public hearing.
But there's no
And
public.
this is not the normal operation of the village. So can you go over for our residents to know what the process of a permissive referendum is?
Sure, on the permissive.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, on the permissive referendum, 10% of the registered voters can sign a petition to mandate a referendum. That's the process.
Yes, and
But there's no
they
public
don't have
hearing.
to go out and get the voters to sign it. They can come to Village Hall to sign it.
Correct.
It is
yeah.
not, you don't have to have voted in a previous election to sign it. It's just a percentage of the vote.
Right, of the registered voters, correct.
I don't think the public knew that, because I went and asked a bunch of people, and they had no idea what I was
Yeah, but you're
talking
saying that public hearing was required. There's no public hearing required.
I understand it. What I'm
Okay.
saying is the way that we have operated in the past here, being open and transparent, especially when we're borrowing over $1 million, that is gonna have to be paid back when we've lost 30 to 40% of our tax revenue. And from my brief questioning, the elected officials don't even know how much is in the undesignated fund balance.
Well, we just said,
Well, yeah, we have, it's much lower than when you left.
So what is the undesignated
Because
fund
of
balance?
some unplanned expenses, because we funded, as the mayor said, the sewer plant work out of it. And it did wind up dipping to a point, an uncomfortably low point.
What is the percentage
I
of
don't-
the
I don't have the
revenue
exact
of
figure.
undesignated? But you voted on this proposition.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
John.
because we had no other alternative.
The last
But
question
if you, you know, that figure is available, we're not hiding it, I just don't remember what it was exactly. It's a few $100,000 or something?
I'll get you the exact number.
Yeah,
So
it's in
the
here.
last question I have on this,
The $266,870.
the last question I have on this is why would you attempt to recoup repairs that have already been paid for? You've already paid for the repairs on the 4th Street pump station, if I'm not mistaken, correct? Those repairs were already paid for, correct?
There are certain ones that were, and the reason was because of the fund balance being low, we wanted to put as much of the work for that operation into the bond as we
So you
could.
feel it's fiscally responsible to refinance repairs that have already been paid for?
I'm not sure if
and pay them out?
it might have been physically dangerous not to.
Okay.
And, you know, I do want to make a comment because things are being alluded to of why it was not televised last month. I made the decision last month not to televise that because the main reason why we were televising a workshop, because we never televise a workshop, is because Norma Drummond was going to be here and she had information about the census. So if we want to blame anybody why it was not televised, It was because I made a decision not to spend the $300.
The referendum was passed at a special meeting, not a workshop.
Yes, it was. Well,
can't
I'm
pass-
sorry, you're absolutely right. I made a mistake, and I should have kept it televised.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from the floor? And I will get back to you what we ended up spending on rehabbing the sewer treatment plant with old technology that we should have upgraded, because now the DEC wants us to change the technology. And if you'd like to respond to that, that would be great.
All of those repairs were done with you guys as the board members.
Absolutely.
It was decided to do it that way because our sewage contract with Entergy provides for a percentage of the operation and maintenance cost to be billed to them.
22%.
They will not take
22%.
capital replacement, capital improvements, okay? We had upgraded the plant with new fans. We did not put in a small bubble diffuser.
No.
Doing that, we saved hundreds of thousands of dollars that we did not have the taxes for. And when the village residents didn't have to pay for it, because we billed Entergy. It took an extra 3 years, but we saved hundreds of thousands of dollars. The dissolved oxygen levels had met the DEC requirements.
Not all the
Not-
time. They did not all the time. We finally
plant-
have a company in there now that's doing the right thing for our sewer treatment plant.
It's great that you've hired a company, but we're supposed to have our own operators here,
Absolutely.
okay?
We didn't have the qualified people, so we had to hire somebody.
You have people that didn't pass the training.
And we had people that weren't doing the
So-
right thing for the plant. Both.
Well, then you
Or
turn-
there were two issues. There were two issues.
There were several issues, I
Yes.
understand that.
Mhm.
But with the administrator, the reason why you don't have a sewer district is Westchester County will not have a sewer district with only one municipality. If you want to create a separate sewer district with Westchester County, you need 2 municipalities. Okay? There's also another study that was done in 2013 to turn that pump station, that sewer plant into a pump station and transfer the sewage to Peekskill. That was, we have the studies for that. It was approximately $2.4 million time, and then you could have done the same thing with a sewer district and create that sewer district tax and the operation for it. Okay? So that was an option. So if we're gonna pass another bond or to do more repairs to the sewer plant.
Not to the sewer plant, to
Okay,
that
just
pumping
the pump
station
station.
on 4th Street.
Well, you made
That's
a
what
comment
it
that it
is.
was upgraded without the proper up-to-date technology. and so
Talking
that
about the
eluded-
sewer
that's-
treatment plant.
That's what I'm talking
So
about.
we're talking
now.
about two different things.
I'm talking about the sewer
Okay,
treatment
okay.
plant right now.
All right.
So if you alluded to that as not meeting the requirements of the DEC, that it has the wrong technology, the next thing will be to pass another bond to do more repairs to it, to bring it up to the latest technology.
I have other options that I'm looking
Okay.
into. I think that'll work.
Because that
Yeah.
study is still out there. There are 3 different tie-in places for it that.
To
maybe
tie
they
into
do-
Peekskill?
That
Is that what you're
correct.
talking about? Yes, and then
Absolutely.
that hit political headwinds,
And
big
those
time.
political people are not in office anymore.
Well-
That mayor that had the issue with it is 2 mayors ago.
I know, but the problem is, there's still political headwinds on that because the city of Peekskill does not want us to have that transferred over to the Westchester County plant because they want to leave it for their future development. So that's what's happening, I'm telling you.
Forgive me
I'm
if I'm
telling
wrong,
you.
but isn't the city of Peekskill's plant a county plant? Or is it
Absolutely, it is, but we have to go through the city of Peekskill to
That's
get to
correct.
that
So
plant.
what do you mean by
And they're
turn it
not,
over?
they're not interested. They're not interested in us tying into that plant because the city of Peekskill, as you know, is doing a lot of development. So they want to use that capacity over there for their future development. Just like when Somers tried to hook in, was it Somers or Yorktown? There was a big
Yorktown.
hullabaloo over that.
Yorktown's like that.
Hullabaloo over that. So they're
So-
not interested in taking any other through their
So
streets.
The proposed project that is going on across the street from Peekskill Hospital with hundreds of thousands of square feet, they didn't
Mod.
have prior approval to tie in to the city of Peekskill?
I don't know what
Oh.
the status of that is, but what I'm saying is there's a certain capacity for that plant.
That's right. and they
My
were-
understanding is from the city of Peekskill, they're not interested in taking our stuff through their streets.
There again, the city of Peekskill
And
is
it's not
not
their
the
plant.
owner of the plant.
Absolutely, it's
Part of the
Westchester
project,
County.
if you remember, the city of Peekskill had input into it. They wanted their pump stations rebuilt and turned over to the county and put a forced main in. And the county was willing to take over their pump station, so they didn't have to spend the $1 million to upgrade it. That was part of the deal. So there's a lot of things that were involved with that.
Yes.
But I just think it's unfortunate that the people who are voting on all of these multi-million-dollar projects, $1 million, which is more than half of the real property tax assessment. We only get 25% of your revenue from property tax, between 22 and 28%. And you're gonna borrow $1 million of that, you know, that.
I don't know, Sean, what's the other option for the pumping station?
During the-
Tell
during
me,
the-
tell me
during the-
what the other option is for
During the public hearing, I would
for
have had
the-
more options, but I
Okay,
just came
all right.
upon
Well,
that the
no,
other
you have
day.
an option now,
So,
you're speaking.
Yeah.
What was the other option for us to
I'll study
upgrade
that and
this?
get back to you, too.
Please, and
Thanks.
I'm gonna get back to you with what we ended up spending from our general fund for the rehab of that plant, and I'll let you know, okay?
Thanks.
So we can have a talk about that.
Sure.
I'm good, we're good, thank you.
Hi, Reed Outhouse, again, 241 Westchester Avenue. Actually, some of the concerns that I was going to speak about actually dovetail into
Okay.
what Sean's discussing. And that's part of, I think, the issue that Sean has, is the way that December 17th meeting was conducted. I was here at the December 3rd Village Board meeting, and I spoke about my opinion of the need to televise Village Board workshops. I also mentioned, I thought, as Indian Point becomes developed, that we should maybe consider, as action ramps up, possibly televising the planning and zoning boards. I understand most of the time now they're kind of dead, there's not a lot going on. But maybe as we enter the future here, they're gonna kick up a little bit. So at that meeting, I think the board sort of seemed receptive to that was a good idea. And one of my other reasons was that, having come to workshop meetings, there's usually a lot of information that gets brought up, discussions are had that affect your decisions, that I think the village residents would benefit from. So at that meeting, at the end of the meeting, I think it was during the mayor's report, Mayor, you stated that at the workshop meeting on December 17th, there would be a special presentation by the county,
Right.
a representative from the county, about the census. You also stated that there would be another presentation possibly from Sustainable Westchester. And then you stated that the meeting would be televised because there was important information to be given there. Now, you didn't say anything about voting on a bond for $1 million, as Sean said.
That was on the agenda.
You also didn't say anything about hiring 2 out-of-town residents into the highway department. That was odd. Nobody knew anything about that. But come December 17th, I happened to just get lucky, go to the village website, the second page in, or actually you have to go 2 to 3 clicks in on the webpage to get to the agenda, and I saw that that meeting was no longer a workshop meeting, it was now a special meeting with an agenda. Right? So I click on it, and what do I see? I see the names of the 2 guys getting hired from out of town, and I see the $1 million bond. So the first question that comes into my mind is, I'm Joe Schmo, average village resident, right? How would I have known that that's what was gonna happen that night? How was it put out there? We have 2 television channels, we have a FiOS channel, we have an Optimum channel, we have a village Facebook page, we have a Code Red system, and we have a village webpage, right? Wasn't on any of them. Go to the village webpage, the front page of the village webpage, where important stuff should be, not 2 to 3 pages in. I think there's a thing there now about making Valentine's Day projects with the rec department. Sean mentioned transparency, major transparency problem, major. I'm a village resident, I just got lucky by coming to that meeting, only because I do come to workshop meetings. And the fact that the TV coverage was pulled just makes me very suspicious about why it was pulled. Because now, if you're an average village resident, you don't even know what happened at that meeting. You know why? Because there's no minutes on it. Just like the other 5 special meetings that were had in 2019. There's no minutes on it, posted on the website. There's no TV. So you would, if you're the average village resident, you would never get to see that 2 non-residents, that the village board deviated from decades of hiring policy, of hiring village residents into those positions. You would never see that happened, unless you happen to see the 2 guys on the back of the garbage truck. you would never see the 3 village residents that got up and were disgusted about that hiring decision and questioned the board as to why. And in my opinion, really got no valuable reason as to why our hiring policy has changed. So I think that's a real problem, real problem. Now, I did email Marcus, and I did get an email back from Cindy about the advertising. Cindy stated that the advertising for a meeting like that is supposed to compose of a sign by the elevator, an email to the Journal News, and the webpage. Correct. Went to the Journal News. I have paper copies of the Journal News. If anybody could show me where in the Journal News, the public notice section, that there is a place where I could find that there's special meetings or any special meeting, please let me know.
I would like to answer that. That's always submitted. It's up to the newspaper to pick it up. We submit it, but doesn't necessarily mean they're gonna pick it up. That is our newspaper that we do use for announcements.
All right. So,
I can't force them to print it.
okay, so that basically, that means, that's meaningless then. That means nothing, there's no sense in even doing it. The public's not involved in that. The other way is, you just happen to have to come to the village hall and stand in front of the elevator, which I don't unless it's a meeting. So you'd never see that. And the only third way is, you'd have to navigate your way through the couple of pages on the village website to see if anything's changed from a workshop meeting to a special meeting, which is what happened here. So, that's my question. How would, just legitimately, we have all these other ways of contacting and notifying the public. How would any of these people here have known that that meeting was gonna go on? And now that the TV coverage was pulled, you don't. The residents will never know what went on at that meeting, unless they wanna poll, minutes, which are just minutes. And it's disgusting, it's non-transparent, I think it's done on purpose. And here's the other thing, which really ticks me off. Supposedly the TV was supposed to be there because it was important, right? The county census was important, right? Is the county census information more important than that vote that you guys, those 2 votes you took that night? Is that what you think of the residents? In other words, that holds importance for spending $300 to have Norman Drummond come up here and tell us all about the census? Or how about the residents deserve to know about the $1 million bond expenditure? The 2 guys that we hired from out of town? That I think would be more important to be televised.
May I?
Well, I'd like to comment first.
And here's the other thing which kind of double ticked me off, is the 2 guys that were hired from out of town, they obviously got personal invitations to that meeting because they were both here with their family and their buddies. Right, so they got the courtesy of an invitation. Hey, we're having a special meeting. We're gonna vote on you tonight. Welcome to the village. The guy that pays the taxes, I bet you 3/4 of them didn't even know about it. So it's just, be honest with you, it's infuriating. It's not the way to do government business. This stuff has to be in the open. Should have been on the Facebook page, should have been on all the ways we can advertise it. And, and the other thing was, that's one of the things I noticed, if you look back into previous years, I didn't see any special meetings going back 2018, 17, 16. 2019, I saw 5, right? A couple of them I'll give you slack on. They were strictly personnel issues where I assumed the public couldn't come because they were probably closed sessions. But there was at least one other one that you guys voted on business. I'm speechless. I don't even know, there's not a lot you could say that's gonna not, it's ridiculous. And the only last thing I'll say, related to that special meeting, which village residents now don't have a chance to see, is there was a presentation by Sustainable Westchester. Be careful with that.
We're not interested in that.
Because, in case you don't know, what they did in Peekskill was, the Peekskill City Council voted to accept Sustainable Westchester into the city of Peekskill. And what they do is, they call it an opt-out program. The city signs a paper that changes all the residents' electric provider, without them knowing. And the only way you find out is if, well, from what I heard, the way people found out is their electric bill went up 6 to 8%.
Yeah.
And they said, why? And they said, well, I don't have Con Ed as a provider anymore. I have some hydroelectric plan or something like that. So that's another thing that the village residents would not be aware of due to that meeting. So I just wanted to make the public aware of that. I hope the board would be smart enough to not go with that. But,
Yeah, no, they didn't
No,
depress
we
us.
were,
May I?
we heard them. No, I'm
Oh,
going
you
to answer
still?
first, please.
but you know, as far as this whole thing with the meeting, the way it was had, we went through this. I stood up here, I don't know how long ago it was, when the police chief thing was going on. There was like some under-the-table stuff going on where there was an agenda. We all showed up here. The next thing you know, the agenda gets pulled, and this isn't happening. There's a transparency problem here, and it's pretty disturbing, to be honest with you.
All right, thank you for all your comments, but I do have to disagree with you. The thing with the police chief, let me address all of them, or whatever the police issue was, we weren't ready to vote on that item, and that's why that got pulled. We have been very transparent as a board. I will take full and complete responsibility for the last meeting that it was not televised, and there was nothing done for any other reason than I really didn't want to spend the $300. Did I make a mistake? I probably should have. And I know you're very perturbed and upset because I know your son was one of the applicants for the job and he did not get hired. So for full transparency, let's put that all out there. This board has worked very hard. And if you see special meetings, it's because a lot of things are going on here in the village. We're going above and beyond doing what we need to do
I
here.
don't want to interrupt you, but is that even allowed to be disclosed? Like, actually, I should have disclosed
Well, yeah,
that.
why not?
But, oh, so you have personnel records, and you're
I
allowed to
don't have
disclose-
personnel
You're allowed
records.
to, so how do you know my son applied for the job?
I don't have them in front of me.
Have what in front of
But you know what, Reed?
Applications?
I know you have gone around and said how upset you were about your son not getting
Actually, that's a
hired.
complete lie. I was
Well,
never said anything.
I'm hearing things from people
I'm
then.
glad
I
you're
must be
things.
hearing
Can
the
you tell
wrong
me more?
things.
Can you tell me
No,
more?
I'm not
Because
going to
that's a blatant
discuss it.
lie.
Okay, I'm not going to
Because
discuss
quite
it
frankly,
anymore. I'm not going to discuss
I don't want my son
it.
working here. He did
Okay.
put an application in
Okay.
there. But how
Okay.
did you know? That's what I want to know. Did you?
Well, the board did vote on who was going to be the two people that we're going to hire. And, you know,
So
but
can you disclose, can you disclose publicly the names?
I don't
of
know, can
everybody
I,
else
did
who
I make,
applied?
did I do something?
That is foilable. You can foil
Okay.
applications.
Okay.
All right, so it's okay for the board to just let everybody know who applied?
Yeah, she let you know that your son,
Okay.
she felt she heard something, but absolutely, you could foil records of all
Yeah.
applicants and
Okay.
get a hold of it.
Yeah,
What you shouldn't be privy to is when they go into executive session to discuss,
absolutely.
you know, who they believe is.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
That's all.
Yep. Okay.
You know,
Thanks.
should we be talking about sons and?
No, of course
No.
not. That's
All
why
right,
she
well,
brought it up, because she
then-
wants to be personal.
Then I
And again,
apologize.
I didn't
I
do anything
apologize,
personal. This is
Reed.
about-
I
I've never-
apologize. I'm
never-
feeling that,
Anybody who knows me knows I've
I'm
never been
feeling the
personal.
attacks on this board are personal, so I'm
Well,
answering in personal.
that's a personal-
I-
that's a
I-
personal
I
problem.
apologize. I
I'm
apologize.
here about the village government, the
Okay.
village board, and the way the village is working. Did you hear anything that I said that was personal?
Okay,
That was you.
well, I
That was you.
will take full responsibility for that last meeting. What was one of the other things on the agenda? Sustainability. It was the vote on the bond. It was,
I'm sorry.
I have the
hiring.
agenda
The
here.
hiring.
The hiring. It was all voted on. Hold on. I know you had mentioned one other thing that I wanted to comment on.
Living over.
Yeah, where did I put that? Oh, there you are. No, I don't know. There was one other thing I did want to comment on. So I'm sorry. Like I said, I apologize. It should have been filmed. I made the decision, so please don't hold that against the board. I take full responsibility for that. As for filming all the time, that's a decision the board's going to have to make with this next budget. It's $300. So if the board, if that's what they so choose to do, they want to do the planning board, zoning board, workshop, that's completely up to them, their decision. You know, the budgets are going to get tighter, but that's what's happening here. So I guess I made a poor decision, and I do apologize. It will not happen again.
I just want to reiterate, the decision about the TV was one part of it. But I think that the notification of the residents that the meeting changed from a non-voting, because when I look on my calendar at home, I see village board workshop meeting. That's you guys in a room, usually downstairs, discussing stuff, not voting on stuff. That's the problem here, is how that was advertised and how that was not pushed out to the village residents. Now, you might be able to say, legally, you did what you had to do. Legally, if that's legal, a sign on the door downstairs and a thing on the website and an email that goes to nowhere to the Journal News, if that's legally, we're all covered, that's pretty bad, okay, but yeah, you could say you're covered yourself. But we got 2 TV channels, a code red system, a Facebook page, and an internet page. There is no excuse that a resident wouldn't know that we're spending $1 million and voting on 2 positions. There's just no excuse.
Okay, so,
All right, one other thing. There's only one TV channel now, because FiOS ceased operation, so it's only one TV channel.
That's not true.
No, yeah, they combined to, there's only, yeah. FiOS went into, it's News 12 now.
Yeah, but the channels of the municipal channels
Yeah.
are still the same.
So with the hiring, I had a decision to make. Either, I know our highway foreman was short on staff, and he wanted to get these people hired. We could have waited till the January meeting. We could have done that to do it, but he was interested in getting those people hired sooner rather than later. So that's why that was done that day. Okay, Nick, I'm sorry, go ahead.
yay, my turn.
There you go, sorry.
Nick, push back to your mic, you're too close.
Am I too close again, Eileen?
Yeah.
It's like a lollipop, I'm going to lick it. How's that?
Yeah, they'll hear from there.
On the TV, it's okay? All right. So, look, first of all, I agree, Reed, there should be, there should have been more of an effort to get that word out to people. I didn't even think of the code red thing. I got a code red call from the town recently about some meeting, and I was a little surprised because I thought of it more for emergency situations. But if we can use code red when there's changes like that to send a message out to residents where it's too late to get an effective announcement out on a newspaper or in a village newsletter, if we can use code red, I think that's a great idea. But I also want to point out that while it might not have been the best practice, there was no intention to mislead anyone. We're not trying to do things under the covers. I've often said, I always refer to the next workshop at the meetings because I know that's where the most stuff gets discussed, and I want people to know what we're discussing. I think almost every time I give a report, I refer to the upcoming workshop and what might get discussed there so people can see that and then decide to come out here. I personally think we should televise the workshop meetings. Benefit me because because sometimes I want to go back to a discussion and there's just so much you could write down during a meeting. So I'm sure it'd be good for the residents. I would benefit from it personally if I can go back to a video and say, oh yeah, I wanted to remember what so-and-so said. I want to remember what I said. I don't even always remember what I said. So yeah, I think my personal opinion is that we should televise the workshop meetings as well as the regular meetings, especially since we're not doing verbatim minutes anymore. We're doing general minutes, or whatever you call them. So I do agree with you on those points. I think you have valid points, but I want to make it clear it was not the board's intention to mislead. And if I'm not mistaken, there was a time factor that we hadn't realized when it came to portions of that bond resolution, which required getting it passed before the January meeting in order to include previous expenditures. We have there's a bit of an issue with our fund balance right now, and we're not going bankrupt or anything, but we did need to include as much of that as emergency repairs to the 4th Street pump station. Actually, the 4th Street pump station is getting completely rebuilt. This is not a planned thing. We don't have the $1 million on hand to just lay out for that. So we had to include as much as we could. I appreciate your points. I think we do have to be transparent, and I think we could do a couple of things towards that. But the board is always, trying to do the best we can. There was no intention to mislead. I want to make a point of that.
All right, anybody else? Any other comments from the floor?
You had stated that Verizon will no longer provide a community channel. if I'm not mistaken,
FiOS,
part of the franchise
Yes.
agreement with Verizon and Optimum is that they will provide a community channel.
That is in the franchise agreement. What is,
They don't have the news station anymore. I think that's what I was trying to say. They don't have the newest news station,
Fios
but
has to
they
provide.
still have, we still have that. It's
So
still,
what Reed was talking about was putting it on the Fios channel as well as the Optimum channel.
oh, on the rolling screen.
That is correct.
Okay, yeah, that's fine,
The
yeah.
other question I had was, you said there's only like $200-some thousand in the fund. When you have the audit and the auditor tells you the health and of the budget and the health of the community as well as the future liabilities, did they say it was good at only 2 or 3% of our operating budget? Because that seems pretty low.
No, it is right. It's
Generally, it
very
should
low.
be, some communities have laws that say they can't go below 5% reserve fund.
Yeah, there's fund balance policies, and
Yes.
the village doesn't have one. That's
And
something we'll talk
and
about.
New York State frowns upon having greater than 30%. So if, it was always my impression and my understanding when I was going through the process for 6 years, that we had approximately a 15 to 25% fund balance that fluctuated based on the depreciation of assets. I find it pretty extraordinary that you only have $200,000 out of about a $6.5 million operating budget, excluding the water budget, which is about another 1.5 million or so. So I can't believe that the auditor would say that the health of the village finances is good and still be able to maintain a bond rating.
First of all, there's no bond rating. The village hasn't had a
Well,
bond
we're
rating for
gonna
years.
have to go for a rating because we're issuing a bond, correct?
No, the last time, no, you don't have to go to, you just get non-rated debt service when they do that. The last one they did, I forget, I'm only been here a couple months, so.
Sure, absolutely.
So the last one they did the same way. They did a 10-year bond but then they get a bond rating. And I agree with you, the fund balance is extremely low. I've been telling the village board that. I inherited this, I don't know how we got here, and the idea is to start building that fund balance back up to a number that we can all feel comfortable with. Right now, it's extremely low, and the water fund is low as well.
But just to clarify in my own head, did the auditor say that the health of the village was satisfactory, based on his budgets, based on the fund balances?
Okay.
In their report, because they have a very thick report.
Yeah, yeah.
And you have to be able to interpret it almost like an account.
The auditors do not tell you the fiscal health of the municipality. They look at to make sure that there's no loss of money, that the books are proper. That's something that normally the state controller does as the fiscal stress monitoring, as you might know about. So that report will come out probably in the next couple of months, and the state will tell you, are we fiscally stressed or not? I believe that we are a position what should be concerned about, severely concerned about, and we should start building it back up. The auditors do not tell you what your fund balance should be, should not tell you. They'll tell you where you stand right now, but they're not going to tell you that where that's the discussion of the board and the community, how they feel. When I was in Peekskill, we almost had junk bond status, so it took us a while to build it up as well.
So the yearly fiscal monitor did not state that the village of Buchanan was stressed, correct?
With that report, the AUD document for last year, for the audit was just done, has to be submitted.
Well,
to
even the
state.
year before that, because I can't imagine you'd go from
Correct.
15% to 3%.
Correct.
So it would obviously be some data points that would show a decline, which I believe, do you know what the initiating value is for fiscal stress?
Can I just say this to you? We just found out after our previous administrator left, there were 3 years of no AUD reports.
Okay, but
So
there
we're
was still
finding
audit-
out things that we didn't know.
There was still audit done every year.
Yes, there
That there
was.
are books available to each one of the
Yeah.
elected officials.
Absolutely.
And you'll see a comparison of 3 years and 2 years, okay? So when you see a declining in assets that go from 2008 is 5.5 million to when I left, it was about 2 million. If it kept going down, and this is all based on you don't believe me? I have them in my house.
Yeah, all right.
Okay?
Well, I'm gonna
Yes,
go over
absolutely.
that.
Because those
And,
assessments
yeah.
take into account the depreciation. So when you get down to the bottom number, you'll see parentheses that say minus. So if you start out at a certain point and you go all the way down to almost zero, you know,
All right.
I just
We'll
find
look
it
at some
kinda weird.
reports.
That's okay. No
Okay,
problem.
thank you.
Oh, one other thing.
Sure.
As you guys know, I'm the chairman of Buchanan Democratic Committee. The day after the election, I'm gonna resign.
Okay.
And as the chairman this year, I will not be endorsing, nor will I sign any nominating petitions or acceptance of nominations for the Democratic Party, nor will I be releasing any funds for reelection. Dwayne will receive my resignation next week with the initiating date of that date. If he cares to take over the funds for it, I will release it to him. If not, I will donate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for your service. Thank you. Okay. Any other comments? All right. Unfortunately, we need to go into executive session over some personnel issues. So on a motion,
So moved.
second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Have a great Buchanan day. Thank you.